He's been called one of the most dangerous people in the world for his push to put blueprints online to make guns on 3D printers. And now Cody Wilson is at the center of a legal battle over making that information available to everyone on the internet. Mr. Wilson, Director of Defense Distributed, joins us now from Austin, Texas. So, simple question. Why on earth do you think putting these blueprints for plastic guns online is a good idea?
Hey, Chris. So I've put the blueprints for all types of guns, all technical plans, all data, all blueprints past and present. I've put them all online, and that's the right that I've secured. It's not like I'm somehow only fascinated by the idea of a printable gun. That was just a mere technical demonstration of a much wider possibility of the digital production of firearms, which is in no way precluded by current law.
But as I understand it, you say this is your First Amendment right. You're talking about information that you're putting online, not what happens after people receive that information. But I don't have to tell you that the First Amendment is not an absolute right. You're not allowed to cry fire in a crowded theater. Courts have exercised prior restraint to stop people from publishing troop movements in the time of war. It's not an absolute right, Cody.
So, Chris, as the hardest newsman in the game, I'd expect you to not propagate that ignorance, right? Fire in a crowded theater has not been good law for over 40 years. That case was replaced. The standard is even the most inflammatory speech is protected by the First Amendment unless it produces imminently unlawful action, right, or direct incitement, or is likely to produce imminent harm. And I mean, these are not the standards. Like, we need to correct the people's ignorance here. Fire in a crowded theater is a pseudo-profundity, okay? The First Amendment, without question, protects this kind of data. Lawfully produced, it's got a cognizant government authority. It's directly related to another protected right of the people, which is their Second Amendment. So speech about another amendment is even more protected.
Well, wait. First of all, we don't know whether it's protected because, in fact, a judge issued a temporary restraining order. There's going to be a court hearing about this week, and I know you're going to be pursuing this. Here, you talk about speech that incites or creates the opportunity for illegal action. Here's the problem with putting these blueprints about plastic guns on the internet. It allows people to make guns that are untraceable. There's no serial number. It allows them to make guns that are undetectable. They're all plastic. They could get through a metal detector. It also allows people who would be prohibited from having guns, whether it's someone with a history of mental illness, a felon, a domestic abuser, even a terrorist. It allows them to make guns. Take a look at Democratic Senator Ed Markey. Here he is.
These downloadable firearms are available even to those who could not pass a background check. It's the ultimate gun loophole.
The NRA has supported the law that makes these guns, undetectable firearms, illegal for 30 years.
So, Chris, I don't think Ed Markey knew you could legally make a gun in this country until last week. And I think that's part of what's inflammatory to at least the Democratic establishment. This is also their discovery that it's been legal in this country since its founding to make a gun for yourself. Well, I'm sorry that you just found that out. Okay, but you should have made a law, right? Your Congress, make a law. Make it illegal to make guns in this country. I'd like to see that.
But they did make an Undetectable Firearms Act, which passed 30 years ago, Cody.
Right, and look, it's legal to make a gun if you include a requisite amount of metal in it. And Chris, this is why I'm not in jail today, right? My printable guns had the amount of metal in it. You know, there's security norms. I respect the norms. Of course, maybe even that type of law ultimately couldn't survive Second Amendment scrutiny, but I'm not here to argue for or against our security norms. I'm literally here to argue that what I won in court over 5 years in the Western District of Texas was the right, and not just singularly, but all Americans have the right to share data for making firearms on the internet. This is not controversial. The progressive case, the H-bomb, nuclear plans, these are all protected by the First Amendment. I'm sorry that some people are just waking up to the idea that the First Amendment protects scientific inquiry that doesn't advantage, what, the gun control movement?
You first put a blueprint online in 2013, and it was downloaded almost 100,000 times before you were stopped by the government. Since you put the blueprint again after a settlement with the federal government online, it was downloaded more than 20,000 times. Is the genie already out of the bottle? Is this information already out there and we're arguing about something that's already happened?
Frankly, Chris, that's the case. When these attorneys general came into Washington, they said, Your Honor, he's going to release all this stuff August 1. Well, look, in one sense, I released it 5 years ago. In another sense, I released it July 27th. I can't make a judge read a brief, okay? But these are APA claims. These aren't Gun Control Act claims. These attorneys general have no standing. The judge can't even review the decision that the State Department made. So I'm just sitting here watching all these gun files already online and people arguing about what reality is when we both know that guns are now downloadable, and they have been repeatedly demonstrated to be.
To a certain degree, I think you're protecting yourself. Hey, I'm just making the information available. I'm not responsible for what people do once they get the information. But the fact is, Cody, there are real-world consequences here. What if somebody takes your information, makes a gun, and then goes out and kills someone, potentially, God forbid, kills a member of your family? Would there be, do you bear any responsibility? Would you feel any remorse?
So I credit the question as like an honest question. I credit your question as good faith, right? But I literally believe in the Second Amendment to the point of that it's all right and it should be expected that there will be social cost for protecting a right like this. Why is the people's right to keep and bear arms on the Bill of Rights? Why is it even protected? Because we know that there are downsides and that there are consequences to allowing free people to own the means of self-defense. I mean, of course, we should expect and have a mature attitude that bad things can happen.
But the government has made decisions that for the best of society, certain people should be prevented from having guns, and that there should be, it should be easier to trace and easier to detect. You're going around to all of that, Cody.
Oh, I disagree. With respect, I disagree. The government has regulated commercial manufacturers of arms and arms and transfer and interstate commerce, but the government has never regulated the production of firearms that you're allowed to own. An American can, to this day, right now, make a gun, and there's no requirement to put a serial number on it. Again, I'm sorry that a bunch of politicians woke up to the reality of this just last week, but this is the way it's always been.
Cody Wilson, thank you. Thanks for talking with us.
A pleasure.